Um, my name's Trish Roberts, and I wanted to share something that I saw the other day, which was by Alice Winningham, who is a regular on Real Progressives, and I thought that was sort of interesting. It was called, it was about neoliberalism, and then he sort of provides some hope at the end of this spiel about what neoliberalism is. And so I just wanted to share that with you, and then share what Ellis says about what's happening in the UK in relation to MMT and neoliberalism. So Ellis says, some members of the general public might be asking, what's neoliberalism? I'll forgo the academic definition and describe neoliberalism in terms that are more familiar to you. Have you or someone you know ever been involuntarily unemployed? That's neoliberalism. Do you or someone that you know currently have a part-time low-wage job and want a full-time job but cannot find one? That's neoliberalism. Do you or someone that you know currently have 2 or even 3 part-time low-wage jobs just to make ends meet? That's neoliberalism. Have you or someone you know ever gone deep into credit card and loan debt just to survive? That's neoliberalism. Have you or someone you know ever gone broke because of medical bills? That's neoliberalism. Remember the global financial crisis of 2008? That's neoliberalism. Ever hear the phrase, the US, UK, Australian government is broke? That's neoliberalism. Ever hear the phrase, federal taxes are revenue for the federal government? That's neoliberalism. Ever hear the phrase that the federal government is borrowing dollars from China? That's neoliberalism. Ever hear the phrase, the national debt is at crisis levels and the federal government is facing bankruptcy? That's neoliberalism. Ever hear the phrase, we cannot afford the NHS? That's neoliberalism. Ever hear the phrase, we can't have full employment because of inflation? That's neoliberalism. Ever hear the phrase, the US, UK, Australian government needs to slash its budget deficit? That's neoliberalism. Long-term involuntary unemployment? That's neoliberalism. Expanding poverty rates, wage suppression, tax cuts for the rich? That's neoliberalism. GDP redistribution to capital? That's neoliberalism. Expanding private debt? That's neoliberalism. Inability to bankrupt student loan debt? That's neoliberalism. Dumbing down of public education, privatization of public services, welfare to work? That's neoliberalism. NAFTA? That's neoliberalism. TPP? That's neoliberalism. The 1999 US budget surplus? That's neoliberalism. Bank bailouts? That's neoliberalism. Rising military budgets? Fiscal austerity in the UK? That's neoliberalism. The invalids, the sick and the dying declared fit to work? That's neoliberalism. Grenfell Tower? That's neoliberalism. The Australian government's push for a budget surplus? The European Money Union? That's monetary union. That's neoliberalism. The suffering in Greece? That's neoliberalism. Flint, Michigan, mass shootings, rising racial tensions? That's neoliberalism. Militarized police, shooting of innocent African Americans by police, endless war, bombing people to Jesus? That's neoliberalism. So that's Alice Winningham. He said on another day, Theresa May and the Tories are now fully aware that MMT poses a significant threat to them, a clear and present danger to their positions of power over the people. This is precisely why Theresa May made it a point to tell the public that the UK government has no money and relies upon taxpayers funding it, something that is usually considered to be common knowledge. They are fully aware of how UK government spending actually works. They are aware that MMT's popularity is rising quickly in the UK, and they are actively trying to prevent public awareness of MMT from reaching a critical mass. They know that if a critical mass is reached, they are finished. At that point of critical mass, MMT will become politically acceptable. And it is at that point where you will hear Corbyn and others begin to speak candidly and unreservedly about how the government funds the NHS and all other things. The time has come for MMT US and MMT Australia to unite for a major push, focusing much of our attention on the UK. If the end game is to begin in the UK, then so be it. And Alice Winningham, that's an encouraging, I think, statement by him about MMT taking hold in the UK. And the other day I was watching Stephen Hale, who was talking to Steve Grumbine, and he was talking about how in Australia, where I live, how the members of the Labor Party, and that's not the politicians, but the members of the Labor Party are actually awakening to MMT, and they are pressuring politicians now to speak the truth about the economic reality. And also in the Green Party, there are members of the Green Party, not the politicians, are also putting pressure on the Australian Green Party. So, I'm just a novice, and I've only really just really learning about MMT, so I'm not going to give any talks like Steve or anything, but I can see when I first saw Steve Grumbine speak about this on another person's channel, and I could see how passionate he was about that, and I could see really, of course I investigated it, I just didn't take it at face value, but I can see how many renowned economists are actually starting to, promoting it, and there are some, it's starting to have a critical mass effect sort of thing. It's starting to really take hold, and I could see how important it was for all of our lives. And so I do my best to try and share what I can from this page, and also, from Dr. Stephanie Kelton and Fidel Kaboub and other people like them, because it's very, very clear how important it is to social justice and all those things that Alice Winningham was describing that is neoliberalism. And I've been around long enough to see what neoliberalism has done to Australia, and it's not pretty. They used to call Australia, this is of course a white thing, but they used to call Australia the lucky country. Well, it's really not the lucky country anymore. I was even looking just recently at the costs of rents for people. I don't rent anymore, but it's just outrageous. There are so many things. I can see our universal healthcare system going down the toilet, basically. It's called, we call it death by 1,000 cuts. And that's neoliberalism. It's a disgusting, anti-human, anti-society, and it's just something that is basically destroying the fabric of community. It's also basically tearing apart communities, and it's intending to do that because who wants anybody to organize? If you have bonded communities, who wants anybody to organize and get together and make plans? And so that's why it's important that if you're not familiar with MMT, that you don't just dismiss it and think this sounds fanciful, because I've been told this particular story about the economy for many, many years, that federal taxes, fund that we have to raise taxes to have healthcare. if you're in the US, that's a nonsense. Federal taxes don't fund spending, and Congress could afford, health care for everybody right now, but they choose not to. But you'll never see them you'll never see them sort of saying we have to raise taxes on people to afford the outrageous, $700 billion here for military spending and imperialist wars. And, you never see them sort of carrying on about raising taxes when it comes to military spending. I just read recently $250 million are spent every day and have been spent every day for the last 16 years for these wars of choice for resources and hegemony in the Middle East. So, and this money, just like that, they come up with this money just like that. You never hear them talking about raising taxes or having to have any bake sales for the military. They can find it right there and then. And that tells you a lot about what they can and what they won't do. So I've seen neoliberalism destroying Australia, and I'm sort of 57, and I'm sort of I'm outraged at what they're doing in this country, because it had a lot of and before the CIA actually started meddling in Australia, they meddled with a very socialist-leaning government, the Gough Whitlam government, and they actually admitted that they had meddled in that government, and Gough Whitlam was actually dismissed. His government was dismissed. And then that was in 1975. And it's been downhill from there ever since that CIA meddling and the neoliberalism with with Thatcher and with that awful actor, I forget his name right now, who got into office, Reagan. It's just been, from the 70s onwards, it's just been downhill. And, these people are supposed to be public servants, but now they're our rulers. They're our rulers, and this is just, it's just BS. And the way we can address this is to sort of really not be skeptical and, of course, do your research about MMT, but please listen. I implore anybody who doesn't know anything about it and who is really struggling and seeing others struggling and all the things that I just listed there about neoliberalism. If you care about yourself, if you care about other people, if you care about brown people overseas that are being killed by the millions for resources and hegemony, if you care about your health and the health of your family. I hear terrible stories. Fortunately, it's not as bad here in Australia as it is in the United States, but I hear shocking stories of people sort of going into terrible debt and also not going to doctors at all. Because they can't afford it. That's just outrageous. Healthcare is a right. So this has to stop. And one of the ways we can do that is to understand MMT and then to get others interested in it. And as Ellis Winningham said, it's really starting to take hold in the UK. There's an exponential shift happening. You can see it taking hold. So, it needs to be pushed. And it needs to be brought to others' attention and, take heart, because even in this short time I've been aware of it, I can see something shifting. But if we care about the planet and we care about other sentient beings on the planet, there's something we can actually do about it in this regard. And that's, to do our best to understand MMT and then to educate others about it so that you can put pressure on these oligarchs that are in Congress and wherever else who are not doing what they can do. And they're not doing what they can do. They're doing what they can do with the military and throwing around billions and billions of dollars. But they're not doing what they can do for people because they're not serving people anymore. They're serving themselves and corporations. And that's absolutely unacceptable. So, and also the other thing is, to support, people who are running for office who are interested in MMT and are trying to, sort of adopt it and then sort of utilize that understanding when they get into political positions. But anyway, that's really all I want. I just wanted to share that thing by Ellis that I saw, Ellis Winningham, because I thought, well, that's a very good description of neoliberalism, and it makes me so sad what's happening in Australia. And I thought, the other day when I had to take my partner to the emergency room, and I thought, wow, if we were in the United States now, we'd be spending thousands of dollars. She had to have a CT scan and a few other things, which would all have racked up to a few $1,000s. And I thought, thank goodness, because we're not really greatly financial at all. We just kind of are hanging in there just like a lot of other people. And things like that can just send you right over. You only need one, you're just at, you're one austerity measure away. Sometimes people are one austerity measure away from homelessness, and you're just one really, really bad emergency bill away from sort of throwing everything else into chaos. So, we have to push back against these rulers, these oligarchs. We have to push back against this anti-human, anti-planet sort of neoliberalism and crush it. It needs to be crushed and ended, non-violently, of course, and one of the ways we can do that is to understand MMT and then force these oligarchs to do what they should be doing. Get rid of the oligarchs, basically, and put in some real people who care about people. This is what we must do, because, basically unfettered capitalism is taking us to extinction. I don't know if that's actually possible to reverse that now as in relation to climate change, but we have to do what we can do, and otherwise we may as well roll over and die. So, this is what we need to do, and that's really all I wanted to say. I don't want to see Australia go the way of the United States, but I can see it happening. And, that would be a tragedy. It's a tragedy to see anybody suffering on the planet. And this austerity crap has to end. Anyway, so, that's all I really wanted to say. So I hope you have a good day. And there's a site too, apart from Real Progressives, which, constantly live streams about MMT and other important issues. But there's a site, neweconomicperspectives.org, which is a good site, and following those people. Somebody's posted different people that you can follow, Dr. Stephanie Kelton, Warren Mosler, Fidel Kaboub, this site, of course, and there's a bunch of other people. And, we can bring this neoliberal sort of catastrophe, disgusting mess to an end if we just apply ourselves and utilize what's already there. We don't have to implement MMT. It's already there. We just have to understand it and then force these politicians to do what they should be doing. And if they don't, kick them out and put somebody in that does. Anyway, I hope you have a great day. Thanks very much for watching. My name's Trish Roberts. Till next time. Bye for now.